Hey, what's up, YouTube? This is kind of a video response to Captain Burrs with his last video about the victims. What's the video called? Victim Society. And I agree with everything he says. And it's not a political party thing or a political stance thing. It's a people thing. And it reminded me of the story about the lumberjack who couldn't. This lumberjack went out and he bought, he's fixing up his log cabin or whatever, and he's trying to set up as much wood as he can get. His goal was to get a cord of wood. And he went out and he bought an axe, falling axe, splitting axe, whatever, bunch of axes. And he started bringing down some trees. And as time went on, the trees got harder and harder for him to cut down. And then he starts splitting up the trees and the wood, and it starts getting harder and harder for him to split up the wood. And so as the trees that he's been cutting gets harder and harder, he stops cutting down the same trees that he's seen and are plentiful and are available, and he starts finding trees that are softer. They don't burn as well, but he can cut them down. It's easier for him to cut them down. So he takes his felling axe, the same one that he's had, and he cuts those trees down. Slowly but surely, those trees become too hard for him to cut down, and so on and so forth. And he starts to go into town. He's talking to people, and he's saying, "Hey, I started out with this tree, and it got to a point where I couldn't cut it down, and I went to the next tree, the next softest tree, and I couldn't cut that down, and I couldn't cut that down before that, and I couldn't cut down before that." And everybody in the bar or wherever he's at starts going, "Yeah, you know what? You're right. You're right. I've been spending all this money on buying new axes and all this stuff, and I can't. I always get in a situation where I can cut them for a little while, but I can't keep cutting them." And I think you hopefully understand where I'm going with this. The axe is a euphemism. The axe is a parallel for the mind. The reason he couldn't keep cutting down the same trees over and over again is because he didn't keep his axe sharp. That's complaining. Complaining dulls your axe. Getting in a group of people that have a similar mind with you and complaining dulls your axe, because it makes you complacent. It makes you accept mediocrity. And not only is mediocrity, look, people are going to drive towards mediocrity, but a lot of the reason why this country is so powerful and good at what we do, for a lot of things that this country does bad, there's plenty more where they do it good, and it comes from all sides of good. That comes from our willingness to fight mediocrity. We give better to charities than any other country because we're fighting mediocrity, because that's what we do. We're crazy, and we go in crazy directions. Look at people like Lewis and Clark. That's not a sanity case. That's I'm going to do this because I'm fighting mediocrity. I'm going to be the one that finds the way through. That's this lumberjack, the opposite of this lumberjack. I'm going to get, and I'm going to keep making it easier, and I'm going to keep making it easier, and I'm going to keep making it easier. Life isn't about making it easier. I mean, you can work your life to make it easier. You can, but you got to work really hard to make it easier. You got to work harder than the guy next to you. Because if you're all working as hard at the same rate, doing the same thing, none of you are on easy street. You got to be working 3 times as hard than everybody else. And he made a really good comment about preppers complaining that people think they're crazy. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people that if you sit down and say, "Hey, I've been storing all this stuff, and I think that, this is coming, and da 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 da," most people are going to look at you cross-eyed. That doesn't mean you have to stop, nor does it mean you need to be seeking their approval. Do what you do. Do what you do. Don't be mediocre. Don't be mediocre in anything you do. Look at me. Look at most of my... Go to Hashnazi, the other channel. You can't find one single path through my life that defines anything I do. Mediocrity is the mind killer to me. It's not fear or anything like that. It's mediocrity. That may be fine for a lot of people. That may be just fine for you. but it's not fine for me. I'm not the guy who's going to keep swinging something into something, dulling my blade. I'm going to constantly be making my blade stronger and sharper. And it all comes down to personal responsibility. Something if something bad happens to me, that's because of my failure. I did something to cause that. I had some part in it, something I shouldn't have done that led to that event. It's not from me and woe is me, the situation was stacked against me. Situations are stacked against everybody every day. The sooner you realize that, and it shifts, by the way. It shifts. You're not just always down. You could be up real high, and then one day you get in the bad area, you get in a bad situation, and all of a sudden you're the low man on the totem pole. And it changes like that. Like that. So, think about it. Personal responsibility is where this all is at. Take it easy.